In a previous video, we looked at a Chinese tank known as the WZ-111. However, this is far from the only failed design produced by the Red Dragon. As relations between the Soviet Union and Chinese government began to fall apart in the 60s, it became a priority to not just replace their aging tank fleet, but also to design new ones capable of facing off against the latest Soviet and Western designs. This scramble would eventually lead to the tank project we know today as the WZ-122. Throughout history, there have been countless tanks, all designed to kill. But not all have been a success. What happened to the ones that never made it, and why did they fail? My name is ConeOfArc. Join me as we journey through time, uncovering failed projects and forgotten creations in Cursed by Design. This video has been sponsored by World of Tanks. World of Tanks is a massive online free-to-play game designed around tank combat. With over 550 tanks from 11 nations, there's something for any armor fan to enjoy, including Chinese tanks. I'm currently grinding my way towards the American T-30 now that I've reached the E100 and Maus in my German trait. Start playing today by using the link in the description below and use the code TANKMANIA. Once you do this, you'll receive a sign-up bonus exclusively for my viewers, which includes the premium Tier 5 Excelsior, 250,000 credits, and 7 days of premium time. You'll also get 3 premium tank rentals, including the legendary Tiger 131, which I own myself and enjoy playing. Huge thanks to them for sponsoring the video, and if you sign up and play on the North American server, be sure to send my clan Cone an application. One more quick disclaimer before we get into the video. Like with my previous video on the WZ-111, the sources for this tank are often translated from Chinese, making possible translation errors much more likely. That, along with the fact that tanks from China are difficult to find accurate, unbiased data on, means you should really only take the information as a general overview of the design and not 100% accurate. That being said, I've done my best to ensure that what I'm providing is the most accurate information possible. Now let's get into the video. During the late 60s, China's tank force was still mostly made up of old Soviet tanks and the Type 59, which itself was essentially just a license-built T-54A. With failing relations between the Chinese and Soviets, they could no longer rely on the USSR for tank technology, and new designs were desperately needed. In April 1967, the Armored Military Department and the 617th Factory Research Institute began working together to produce a new tank design. By December of 1967, the Defense Industrial Science Committee agreed to further development of the design, giving it the designation WZ-122. When the Sino-Soviet border conflict resulted in the capture of a Soviet T-62 in 1969, it further jump-started the program to develop this new tank. The requirements given for this new tank envisioned improvements in virtually every category, which posed a significant but not impossible challenge. These included a more powerful gun, more ammo capacity, upgraded equipment such as night vision and a stabilizer, reduced size and weight, improved protection, better reliability, and noise reduction to help with crew comfort. The first prototype, known as the WZ-122-1 or WZ-122A depending on the source, was completed on September 25, 1970. This tank was equipped with a 120mm smoothbore gun capable of firing armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot rounds developed from the 115mm rounds used on the T-62. When fitted into the Soviet-style cast turret, this cannon was capable of 3 to 4 rounds per minute, with 18 degrees of elevation and a surprising 6 degrees of gun depression. Considering a further development of this gun would later be used in the Type 89 tank destroyer, it would have been quite capable as a main armament. If that wasn't enough to deal with whatever Soviet or Western threat the tank encountered, it was also equipped with 4 anti-tank missiles mounted in 2 launchers on the turret. These missiles were a forerunner to the later HJ-8 missile used by the People's Liberation Army. Originally, it was planned to mount a 20mm autocannon on the roof as well, but this was later deemed to be too heavy, so a twin 12.7mm mount was used instead. For its final armament, the tank had a single 7.92mm coaxial machine gun. All these weapons were mounted atop a hull which still closely resembled the Type 59. The exact armor values are unknown, but were most likely similar to the T-55 or T-62 given the influence those tanks had on the design and its 37.5-ton weight. As for the other aspects of the chassis, we know significantly more about them. In the first iteration of the tank, the suspension was a hydropneumatic type, although it did not have the ability to use it like other tanks which could adjust their hull pitch. Rather, it just used the liquid pressure to provide a smoother ride. The transmission also used hydraulics to operate, which provided powered steering and assisted with the clutch. These three systems are commonly referred to as the three-liquid technology. This sophisticated system, which was fairly advanced for its time, was powered by a 690 horsepower diesel engine. This allowed the tank to reach a reasonable speed of 55 km per hour or 34 miles per hour. However, despite its liquid suspension, this tank would not have a smooth ride from this point onwards. The cost of this new technology, along with issues experienced with it during testing, led to the three-liquid technology being replaced by a so-called three-mechanical system. This swapped the previous hydraulic systems with a mechanical transmission, torsion bar suspension, and mechanical controls. The engine was changed as well to a 641 horsepower diesel. The designers of the WZ122A would also find themselves being replaced, with the original ones being purged due to them being considered part of the educated class. The new three-mechanical tank, known as the WZ1222 or WZ122B, underwent testing in various regions of China. Supposedly, it covered nearly 3,000 kilometers from 1971 to 1973. The results are a bit less clear, with the source saying, and I quote, "and achieved certain results." From there, development would start and stop, with numerous versions of the WZ122 being produced. The three-liquid prototype was later used to produce the Plant 704 prototype, which added a new engine with 730 horsepower as well as a loading aid. It also seems to have been equipped with some form of experimental fire control system which allowed for daytime aiming, low-light aiming, laser rangefinding, and ballistics. This would work with the stabilizer which the 704 was equipped with, allowing for more accurate fire. At least one of these tanks seems to still exist, with a possible second shown next to it in one photo, although this may be a different variant of the WZ122. Following this, the WZ1224 was produced. This tank was used as a demonstration vehicle for next-gen tank technology. It maintained the 120mm smoothbore from the previous tanks, but received a 1,000 horsepower engine from Germany. The engine wasn't the only thing the Chinese took from the Germans, though. The 4 was actually a revival of the 122 program in 1978 in an attempt to recreate the German Leopard 2 in order to fight against the Soviet T-72. The tank was all but unrecognizable from the original machine it was based on, with a new welded turret and 6-wheel suspension. According to the Warspot article I found regarding this variant, this came following the visit of a Chinese army leader to the Krauss Maffei factory in the mid-70s. Supposedly, both Germany and China hoped that the Chinese could import or license produce the Leopard 2, but cost and limited industry made it impossible. Regardless, the WZ1224 represents the attempts made to recreate the main aspect of the Leopard the Chinese sought, namely the mobility. The two following designs, called the WZ1226 and WZ1226F2, were both identical to the 4 but used different engines. The former used an 8-cylinder diesel and the latter used a 12-cylinder diesel, both producing 986 horsepower. Very few images of the WZ1226 exist, with it still being considered a highly classified vehicle. Neither of these tanks seem to be very reliable, which likely is what caused them to remain just test vehicles. You may have noticed that I left out the WZ1225, and it wasn't a mistake on my part. The 5th version of this tank would become the final product of this entire series of vehicles, namely the Type 80. Strangely, it never received the designation of 1225. Needless to say, the WZ122 had a complex development history. Although in the end this would lead to multiple tank designs built using technology from the program, the eagerness and eventual purging of the original designers cursed this design to be relegated to just a workhorse, never seeing production. Its spirit lived on into the Type 80 main battle tank and Type 89 tank destroyer, along with a slew of other technology, which likely connected to most if not all of China's current tank forces. As I mentioned earlier in the video, at least a few of these tanks are still around today within China's borders. Sadly, the ones we have photos of appear to be in fairly poor condition, but hopefully they will be saved to preserve this important link in Chinese tank development. More recently, the tank was given new life, with its likeness being added to World of Tanks under the name of 122TM. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more like it in the future. If you found it interesting, you should check out my other video on the Chinese WZ111 heavy tank. Don't forget to use the link in the description and code TANKMANIA to start playing World of Tanks today. If you're watching this prior to June 1st, 2021, you can get a jump start down the Chinese tree thanks to the on-track event for the WZ-111 5A. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.